my name is Susanna and this is my video log for the first week of our new semester, in which we're studying digital journalism. Please excuse the change in quality here. My phone decided it was going to pack up and wasn't going to record anymore, so this will not match my other video log, which I took on that. So I had to use my webcam, but you know, it's fine, it's fine. As a side note, I am so glad we have moved on to this format of reflection, because anyone who knows me knows I can talk and talk and talk and talk, but I have real difficulty getting ideas in my head down on paper in a sort of concise fashion. Again, that could be my dyspraxia, I'm not sure. But yeah, this is just much easier because I can just run my mouth for a few minutes and don't have to worry about it, well, making grammatical sense, perhaps. Anyway, this has been quite an interesting week. Where's my... There we go. We started with looking at how the press came to be, at least in England. Had a very, very interesting lecture on the first day back, looking at the birth of journalism and the rise of magazines and newspapers, and actually how this had been kind of around since the Roman period. People have always been people. That's sort of my motto. As of now, the most recent lesson we've had was on Friday, in which we learned about journalism rules and regulations, and we learned about the phone hacking scandal, where everything went down the toilet when it came to rules and regulations. I now know more about the phone hacking scandal than I ever did before, and I mean, I do remember it, and I remember what a stink it caused, but I didn't actually know the method that journalists were using to hack into people's phones and their answering machines and all that. And yeah, I mean, what a palaver, what a catastrophe it was. And how embarrassing it was. And actually, while we were learning about this, one thing that immediately popped into my head was the case of Amanda Knox, which we were shown a Netflix documentary about a year ago, I think it was. And if anything, that obviously things were a bit different because that was the British and the American and the Italian press all jumping on this case like a pack of vultures. And obviously the rules are going to be different in every country, but if anything, that case I think really highlighted why having rules and regulations as to how far journalism can go is so important, because when things aren't regulated properly, stuff like that can happen. And it was just a case where, I mean, we don't know for certain, but it seems like there was a massive miscarriage of justice. So that's why these rules are so important, because yeah, I think it was the pressure from a lot of the press that may have resulted in the police sort of jumping to conclusions where maybe there weren't any. Anyway, so that was quite interesting and kind of soul destroying, and lose your faith in humanity while you wait. But then why am I studying media anyway? Anyway, so what we're meant to be doing now is we're developing ideas for a magazine that we're going to make. And I think I've got a fair idea of what I'm going to do. You know how in newsagents you can see lots and lots of kids magazines, and specifically Disney magazines, and the thing is, Disney is this huge conglomerate that now owns Marvel and Star Wars, as well as their animated fare. And what's interesting is that sort of gives these kids magazines a great deal of variety. So you can have an article about Disney princesses, and on the next page you can have an article about Star Wars, and on the next article you can have a page about, I don't know, Toy Story or The Good Dinosaur or something like that. And I think that's... and I don't think there are very many magazines for adults that are like that. There are some video game magazines, but that's specifically about video games. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to create a magazine called The Fandom Files. That's its working title. And it's going to be about adult fans. In a way, it's going to be sort of a bit like a fanzine, which have sort of fallen out of vogue these days with the rise of the internet. But that I'm a huge fan of fandom and fictional stories and fan art and fan fiction and stuff like that, and I really want to play to my strengths there, because that also gives a lot of variety. For example, I could have a film reviews section. I could have a article about, I don't know, Bumblebee, the new Transformers film, which, goodness me, a good Transformers film. What are the odds? And I could have something about Steven Universe, which is a very interesting cartoon, because it sort of has lots of really good LGBT representation. But also there's quite a toxic side to the Steven Universe fandom, and I heard a terrible instance recently of someone who did some fan art of one of the main characters, and how do I describe this? The character in question is overweight, and this person had drawn her as not overweight, and for some obscure reason that meant that she got attacked by lots of people for not portraying this character as the weight she should be. And that caused such a that sort of caused this person to borderline commit suicide. So I think it would be very interesting to look into the positivities of fandom, but also how people can go absolutely nuts in a fandom, and point out how, you know, that kind of stuff is not okay. So I think that would be a really interesting thing to do. It would give me a great deal of variety. I'd love to do a bit about fan fiction, which is a kind of fan fiction is basically derivative works. And I remember there was a lovely video series I saw online called The History of Fan Fiction, which began with something, Virgil was a Homer fanboy, which is wonderful, because yeah, he took characters that Homer had maybe created or written down and wrote his own fan fiction to do with it, which is called the Aeneid. And so I thought that would be really interesting to put in as well. So it's giving me some good ideas. Like I said, it's going to be set up kind of like one of those kids magazines, but for adults. And I think that it would be really interesting to do. So yeah, that's my unique selling point. It's a Disney magazine or Disney style magazine for adults. And so I'm going to start research, and this is my first in a series of vlogs. Actually, no, it isn't, because I've done one already on Simon's, but never mind. And yeah, so that's where I am right now, and fingers crossed it works. Thank you.